Hi there, welcome to a new episode of Media Coffee. My name is Sami Saad, and I'm the host for today's episode. Media Coffee is brought to you by Cision, a global provider of earned media software and services for PR agencies and communication professionals. In this podcast series, we speak to journalists, media influencers, and publishing partners from around the world to answer our clients' biggest question. If you'd like to know more about Cision, feel free to follow us on social media to keep up to date with our news. I'm really excited about our guest today. He's a world-leading retail consultant, sales and marketing coach, author, and an award-winning blogger. His client list have included Caesar's Palace, Omega, Lego, Yamaha, and thousands more. His work has been featured in some of the biggest media publications such as the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and Entrepreneur, and has made appearances on ABC, Fox, MSNBC, and PBS. He's also a top voice on LinkedIn with over 340,000 followers. He is known as a retail doctor, and you can check out his work at retaildoc.com. Please welcome Bob Phibbs. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
All right, so let's jump right into it. Let's start a little bit about your background, how you got your, start in the retail industry and how you became known as the retail doctor.
Oh my goodness, we only have 20 minutes. Well, the I'll try to keep it a little bit short, but I started when I was in high school. I was a janitor when I was 16, and I was in retail there. And that's probably why when I do business makeovers, cleanliness is still the first thing I look at because that's was drilled into me, as a matter of fact, by the owner's mom who came in one day, and after the holiday party, I started to clean up the sink, and she comes in and she goes, "You're the one." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "You call that sink clean?" And so she made me take my hand and go around it until it was perfect. And I'm like, "Oh, there's standards in cleaning. Okay, that's important. Good, good, good." So I put myself through college selling shoes. And I got my degree in conducting with a minor in business from Chapman University in Orange County. And I was selling cowboy clothes for probably 10 years, took a little regional chain of 5 stores to 55. And one day the owner asked a group of about 100 people, "What's a company's greatest asset?" And I said, "Oh, that's easy. It's employees." And he goes, "Wrong." And I'm like, "Wrong. Huh." So we went around the room. No one had the answer. And finally goes, "It's customers." I was like, "Huh." So after that meeting, I walked down to his office and I said, "We built this company based on employees, and customers are fickle. They can go anywhere. You can't count on them. And something's really changed here. I'm out in 2 weeks." "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm out." So I quit and licked my wounds for a while. Oh, what am I going to do? And I went to Tony Robbins' seminar at Universal Amphitheater. It was when it still had it was open to the no ceiling on it. And Tony was only doing a 1 day event at those times. It wasn't before the firewalk. And I left there with the message he said is, "You better come up with a brand nobody else can do better than you." I'm like, okay. So I came home literally the next morning. I filed the trademark for the retail doctor. I still didn't know what I was going to do. And a few weeks later, I read in the local paper all these letters to the editor. "This is what's wrong with America. The big guy putting the little guy out of business." I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Turns out there is a little coffee roaster in Long Beach, California, and Belmont Shore. And the news is that Starbucks is about to put a second location 100 feet from his front door. So I go down and meet with him. His name's Mike. And I end up finding out that his sales been going down 10% every year since the previous year when they opened a Starbucks 10 blocks from him. He actually owed more than he sold in a year, and his stepdad, who said you'll never amount to anything, was his landlord. Like, holy crap, dude, this is a stacked deck. And I go, "What are you going to do when that second Starbucks opens?" He goes, "I haven't got a clue." And from that, we rebuilt his business. It went up 50% the first year, 40% the next. At that point, I called the local free papers and said, "Would you read a story about this?" So I got some little stories. There's an Orange County story, was one of the first ones. And then I got the local press, and then I got the Long Beach Press Telegram. And on a whim, I just said, "This is a great story." And being old school, I called the New York Times business editor, and he picked up. And I said, "Would you be interested in how the story about how a little guy beat the big guy?" And he goes, "I would." And so I met the reporter out in Encino in July, and had a nice interview. And time goes by, and it's now October the 27th, 1997, and I am in New York seeing a play on vacation, and I go down on Sunday morning to Hilton, and I look down, there's the New York Times, I flip it over, and there's a color picture of me and Mike, and I open it up, and across the entire top of the business section, it says, "Meet the category killer killer." And that was my entry in. So from there, I built my business to be a magnet for some of the world's greatest brands, from everywhere from Lego to Yamaha to Google, you name it. But it all comes down to PR, my friend. It all came down to, that personal touch. And that's what really makes a difference. So if you're listening to this, I can guarantee you that when you're looking at trying to get your message out, I can tell this story now because it's 30 years later. But I also was a conductor at the Carpenter Performing Arts Center, and we had this new concert was going to come out on Friday in May, and I wanted to get publicity, and everybody's like, "Oh, send the press release," and I did, but I'm like, I don't want her to review it. That doesn't get me seats. I need a story. So I thought, what am I going to do? What do I do? So I went down, I got a cake, and I had a little sign on it, opening May 19th, 8 p.m., Carpenter Center. And I brought it down with balloons, and I brought it down the LA Times. And I go to the office, and I go, I have a delivery for her name, I've forgotten, the arts and entertainment editor. And the guard goes, "Oh no." I go, "I need to bring it to her personally." He goes, "No, you can't bring it. I can." The rest like, "Oh." All right. So Monday morning, I call her, and she picks up the phone. And I said, "Hey, it's Bob Phibbs." And she goes, "Gifts are highly improper at the Los Angeles Times." And I said, I'm sure they probably are, but how was the cake?" She goes, "It was great. You'll get your story." So I share both of those stories for you because we are talking about the value of PR. We are talking about initiative, but it still comes down to your creativity, doesn't it, Sammy?
Yeah, 100%. And what an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love the fact that you did your own PR too. That's a sign of a true entrepreneur. You're doing your own thing. And yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing that. Let's talk about your website and your blog. Your website has been named the best on the planet for retail 2 years in a row by FeedBuzz. In 2018, it was featured in over 20 retail influencer lists, often ranking number one. What inspired you to start your website, and how has it changed over the years, and how are you able to achieve such recognition?
Oh my goodness. Well, I had a website originally would have been built on Flash, which Steve Jobs famously said is a security risk, and suddenly Flash had to go away. So I was looking around, and I got a call from a company called HubSpot. They were a brand new, innovative company, and the girl was like dog with a bone once she got me on the phone. I shouldn't say girl, young woman. And she kept calling me back, and she said, "There's something new going on. It's called inbound marketing." And I was like, "Oh, how's that work?" And so, well, we're the pioneers of it. I think I was count 75 out of them. And when I first went to their inbound, which now has 6,000, 10,000 people to it, we might have had 75 in a Sheraton ballroom, and the opening event was pretzels in a cup and beer with the owners, Dharmesh and Brian. So they've come a long way. But that whole idea was you've got to come up with something unique to you, and then you've got to find a platform that lets you get it out there. And so I was writing a blog. Well, I was at my heyday, I was probably writing easily 4 blogs a week. And the idea was I wanted to do evergreen content because retail doesn't change that much. It does a little bit, but not that much. And so I have about 1,000 blogs up there. Now I understand that you're actually competing with yourself when you have so many of the same titles up there. But that's all we knew. You had to feed the beast. Google wants fresh meat, so you got to out and kill something and post it up there. And my site now, I probably have experts. In fact, I just had my web guy Ben, uh, who went. I guess we took like 3 or 4 months, went through some of our sales pages and through our workflows. And you've always got to be looking at it because at the end of the day, we get tired of it, just like a store, right? We kind of just assume it looks fine. And then you look at somebody else, you're like, "That's amazing." And even now, I'm always questioning it. So maybe that's the sign of an entrepreneur. You're always saying, Why isn't this converting more? Why isn't this doing better? Because the one thing for anybody who's got a business should realize is that back button has lost you more business than Amazon or anybody else. Where we go back, it's like, yeah, that's not the answer. And so, as an entrepreneur, content creator, you're always trying to figure that out.
Yeah, 100%. You're always looking for the new fresh content and trying to keep your content engaging and relevant. Um, so let's shift a little bit to online brand awareness and best practices for content publishing for retailers and others. As someone who's consulted many businesses, what common challenges do you see retailers face today when it comes to gaining exposure and media coverage? What advice do you have for them?
Well, you've got the big boys like, Macy's or Target who, they've got a media empire underneath them. 30 people are looking at new TikTok trends and all these things. So they're the ones putting something, oh, we've got AI in this, we got AI in that. It's like, so what? But it keeps their name out there. That's the important thing. There was a art supply. I grew up in Glendale, California, and Swans, they went out of business during the pandemic, but they were around for like, I don't know, 75 years. And they would send out a postcard every week about the one thing that they had. And it didn't matter, right? So it had colored paper, it had markers, it had art supplies, holiday, doesn't matter. And I always remember that because it got in the house. We got to remember that whatever that is, if it's physical, and by the way, mailing, actually doing direct mails are still effective if you can get past the sorting over the trash, but that's another story. Nowadays, we send an email. I send a newsletter out every Sunday night. We have about 100,000 people on the list. Realistically, uh, 25,000, 30,000 open it, and that's and you don't always know that now because Apple's, a third of them, you don't know what the heck's going on. So you're trying to get them to click. So you never want to put a whole article in the newsletter. You've always got to see like a keep reading or read more or something like that. But the thing for me, I must use 10 different AI tools in a week. And I think of them as a way, particularly when it comes down to how to get my message out. If I'm writing a post or if I'm writing a newsletter or a subject line or meta description, I can just kind of give it a word salad and say, this is what I'm thinking, give me 20 variations of this. And I might go, those are terrible, try again, try again. I might use a different tool. But what I appreciated is I've already done the hard work, which is I know what I want to say. Can it craft it in a way that I go, yeah, that sounds like me? And usually I have to cut and paste things, but I think so many people throw up their hands and go like, "Oh, I can't do it." Well, of course you do. Anything you can do, right? That's what people forget. Anything is better than nothing, right? So even if you're just putting out an email that just says, "Hey, it's been a while. We're opening a new location next week. I hope I see you here. Here's the directions." That would be great. If you could go the next level and you could show people like in a Facebook or a TikTok or a Insta live and you could show like leaving your parking lot and driving there and to show them how to park and all that, that would be cool. Maybe it would be showing behind the scenes setting up, but that's a lot. I admit, there's only so many hours in the day, and at some point you're like, I don't want to do it. In fact, I had a friend of mine who took off 2 months this summer, saying, "I'm off. I'm going offline." And I was like, that seems irresponsible for an entrepreneur to me because it's like swans, right? If I don't keep putting something out there, you're going to forget me. And if you forget me, you're not going to go look at my website. And you don't look at my website, how the hell are you? I'm going to hope that a friend shows it to you? No.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any specific practices, tips about uh, publishing content that boost web traffic? Any strategies you use to ensure your content is engaging and consistently relevant to your audience? How important it is to tailor those blog posts to to a specific niche?
Well,
How can
yeah,
brands do that more effectively?
my goal always was I want to be a big fish in a tiny little pond. So if you are looking for physical retail, how do I grow sales in a brick and mortar store through people? I'm your guy. Yes, I could speak about marketing and a lot of other things, but that's where I want to play. So everything has to be around that. But honestly, I just published a blog, I guess it was last week, and it was like, stop complaining and get rid of your outdated hiring techniques, because it was all based on me asking a question on my Facebook page and people just going off about, this generation doesn't want to work and nobody wants to do this. And the great old days were like this. And I just kind of went into it. And do you know that that title, Stop Complaining, I think was fundamental to getting that to be shared and open so much because it was real, but also there's a little BuzzFeedy about it, right? You kind of are like, I'd love to say, here's 10 tips to have a better store, but if I wrote it, the 10 things that are killing your store right now and how to fix them, you'll read that. And so you're always thinking of what do they get out of it? And then as you're writing it, show me you know me, right? So you're going to use language that they're doing. If you are selling gutters if you have the local Ace and you're selling gutters, then you're mentioning, over in Elmwood where all the trees are growing, one of the big problems we have is locust trees, leaves get caught on those little yellow leaves, have a picture of it, right? But you're talking so narrow that only someone in that area is going to go like, yeah, he knows me. Versus, yeah, you could ask AI to write that. Absolutely, you could. Give me 500 words on gutter protection or gutter replacement and what you need to do. But it's generic. So the more you can show a human side, I think the better. And a personal picture in a website or a newsletter, show us, not we, this nebulous we believe in customer service. Show us who is we. All those things all add up to, look, we are living for human to human contact. And whenever you can show that, you'll be the winner.
I couldn't agree more. You mentioned AI, and you yourself used it to, kind of help you build the content. It's a great way to as a supplement for sure, but not as a replacement. I always say, speaking of AI, do you have any predictions about trends that will shape the future of content publishing?
I mean, I absolutely believe AI is going to be, we are unleashing Skynet from the Terminator. All these guys admit we don't know what we're doing. We just keep doing more of it. Like, that's not a good thing. That's not good. Um, I think AI is going to be like, cable was a luxury at first, and now it's pretty much standard. I think AI is built into so many things. I know Google Gemini is really cool because I can get a long email from somebody, and I'm on my phone and I can push a button and it says summarize this for me. And it's like they're trying to get out of the deal or they're trying to get you to speak or whatever. And then I can go like, oh, that's helpful. I'll go look at this on my desktop later. I think all those little tools that come in and can help us be more productive, that's where it's going to live. But is it for the average person like you and me, is it going to be a magic wand? I don't see it, but there's a lot they aren't telling us. If you talk to the big ones, they say they've actually been working on this 8 or 10 years. Like they've been experimenting with this. So they've seen how far it's leapt, and they keep saying that by the more computer power, which is destroying the environment, let's be honest, those servers are taking a lot, but the more computing power they can get, the quicker it goes. And for example, hopefully it's not taking too long on your podcast here, but we just started a voice to voice AI role play generator. And so what it is I've got training on any number of subjects. Right now, we just did one on how do I handle a difficult conversation with an employee. So we created this AI. I guess it's not really a bot because it's generative, but you give it the parameters. This is what's happening. This is what happened. And she's been late 3 times in a week, and you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with her. So she starts off and just says, yeah, now's a good time to talk. And you just start talking to your computer and she'll answer it back and forth. The power you need to do that in real time is crazy. And I can see a day when that would actually be virtual movie that'll be actually generated and we'll go like, wow. But it's only a step to get you to the person to person. That's the important thing. It's not the begin all. I don't want you learning the computer. What I want you to do is to be able to go like, oh, I'm solid in this skill, and now I can go out there. So I think it's fraught with the chance we only need one of those maniacs to figure it out and rewrite its code. And but I'm going to take the other side and say it's going to be a cleaner more elegant place for a lot of people to work and live.
Right. Yeah. That's a very interesting application as well. Let's shift our focus to the, media, PR. As they always say, the media landscape is constantly evolving. How do you see the role of PR changing in the retail industry? How should brands adjust their PR strategies to stay ahead?
Well, I wish I knew. I hired a PR company, 10 grand a month for a year. And it's like, it's a long play. It's a long play. And it was like, dear God, I would be lucky if I got one line at the bottom of the Washington Post, Bob Phibbs, CEO of the Retail Doctor, has a contrarian view. And you're like, is that really valid? But I got a lot more speeches by being out there. I got a gig from NetSuite as an influencer, and we did a joint customer poll, and it was that people didn't want to use voice shopping. So the headline that we came up with on the press release was, "Hey Alexa, we don't want to shop with you," and that stuck as it went around the world and got some good press. So I think in my case, I think I'm always looking at now podcasts because there's a certain relevance to it. If you ask me if you have at least 8 episodes, I'll probably get on a podcast with you. It's more of an avenue for me to stay fresh and make sure I'm talking about the right things. But yeah, the other thing about press is instead of thinking that you're gonna, in the old days, we would come up with a press release, one page, had a format, had to go, but you'd say, oh, we'll fax it out in those days. And then you try saying, oh, I'll email it out. But you realize that no one gives a darn about that you've got a sale coming up. No one cares that it's your anniversary. What's the hook, right? So that subject line, which again I would go back to Claude or ChatGPT or any number of AI assistants, is going to be crucial. And then A/B test it, and then just send the reporter, just like I did with the New York Times 30 years ago. Hey, would you read a story about this? Let me know. And the likelihood that they're going to pick it up is probably zero. But when it happens, you're like, oh, that was worth it. And you just got to remind yourself, just like a sale, some will, some won't. So what next? Because what's the opposite? No one will read our stuff. Oh, that's above me. I can't do it. I didn't say that, and I'm standing here today in a brand that I couldn't imagine I could build, and that people are getting a lot of value at because at some point I just said, keep going. And I think that's any entrepreneur, that's anybody trying to get press. And yeah, for your brand, maybe it's going to be TikTok. Not my brand. My customers aren't there. Some could be. I get it. Don't get me wrong. But how do we reach a very distracted world? And that's where marketing comes in. That's where PR comes in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Things are changing all the time, but the story is always the biggest factor to getting your press and the narrative. So, that's very well put. Speaking of press releases, what value do you still see in using a press release, like, Cision's new PR Newswire, for retail brands trying to get their message out there? Do you have any tips about, maximizing the impact of the press release?
I think, again, in my world of retail, I think the bigger the story you can tell. That story I told the New York Times, would you be interested in the story how the little guy beat the big guy? That will never not work. But you better have something to back it up. So we had a great face and Mike. We had the numbers to go underneath it, and it tapped into something. I think if you can build, I know a Main Street. This is 10 years ago, and they all decided it was Barbie's whatever 40th anniversary. And so they had a thing where they had a collection of Barbie dolls at one store. They had the bar that had drinks like when she first came out with the name on them. We had a travel agency that did something with Barbie and had a woman, I think, dressed up as an airline stewardess from that time. And everybody on the main street had this Barbie-a-thon, if it makes sense. And it was a brilliant move because of course it got press and they had pictures to go with it, right? So you had that visual element to go with it. And so when the day came, they had a great time. Everybody went back, but they didn't check a box and go like, okay, we'll do that again next year. They had to say, all right, well, now what? And I think that's the other thing when it comes to PR. whatever the hook is, if it's right. Like right now, we're doing the retail refresh, starts in the middle of September, 60 days to a better holiday campaign with the retail doctor. You'd think everybody and their uncle would want to do that. Well, that kind of sounds like work, Bob. So next week we're talking about we're giving you $1,000. If you do the activities, you're eligible for $1,000 TV. That gets people to go like, oh, there's something different there, right? So I think as you're crafting it, and as certainly with Cision and PR Newswire, you're always realizing that a lot of people have ideas, but very few are putting them out there. So become a student of it. PR Newswire, it does a great job of getting it out and gives you the different elements that you can send it out to, and just be a student of it. And you don't have to do it forever, but just try and say, what about now? Because a lot of times in retail, we go back and I'll tell people to do things like, yeah, we used to do that. And to your point, we could say PR has been around forever too. I mean, kings and queens, they had to have their PR. They did it a different way, right? Hey, this war's great. We're going to go do this. Wonderful. But for us, average people, I think what we're really trying to look for is your story has to bring hope. Hope that it's going to be a fun time, hope that you're going to be building a future for their kids or whatever it's going to be. And if you understand that, then the way you craft it isn't so much a nuts and bolts, we're doing this and this and this, but this is how it makes life better for our community. And I think anybody would publish that.
Well, what a great way to end this fascinating interview. A big thank you to Bob for joining us and sharing your wisdom. It's been a pleasure having you. Where can people find you or connect with you?
Well, certainly you can go to retaildoc.com, retaildoc.com. That's where you can find out what me as a motivational speaker, certainly as my online retail sales training program, Sales RX, or consultant or makeovers or all of that stuff. And then also you can find me on LinkedIn. Join my 350,000 people out there, just Bob Phibbs. And if you're looking, you can find me pretty easily by just Googling the Retail Doctor.
Thank you so much again. And also, please don't forget to follow us, Cision and PR Newswire on social media as well, and tune in for the next episode. Thank you so much, Bob. Have a great rest of your day. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.